Hello, my name is Will Wertz. I have the privilege of being the president of the Schiller Institute, which was founded by Helga Zepp LaRouche back in 1984. And I think we all owe a debt of gratitude to Helga for having introduced us to Friedrich Schiller and for having founded the Schiller Institute, which has increasingly over the last decades played a crucial role internationally in the efforts to create a new, just world economic order. And what I want to do today is to indicate the significance of Friedrich Schiller to the world as we face it. One of the most important things that Schiller developed was the need to educate man's emotions. And he came to the conclusion that that was necessary following the French Revolution, where a great moment found a small-minded people who were easily manipulated. And instead of enjoying political freedom following the American Revolution, the French Revolution led to a massive catastrophe. And the liberation of Europe from the oligarchy did not at that time occur. Now, one of the things that Friedrich Schiller writes in his letters on the aesthetical education of man is that one should give the direction to the world of the good. And he argues that although we live in our century, we should not be the creatures of our century. That we need to give to humanity is what humanity needs, not what humanity praises. And I think this is particularly appropriate to the circumstances we face today, in which there is an opportunity to shape the future. But it is an opportunity which we must seize very rapidly. And the only way that we can seize the future is by operating on a much higher plane than most people do. And specifically, what I would suggest, and this is based upon comments by Lyndon LaRouche on Wednesday and then also Thursday, is that just as Schiller said that we have to live in our century but not be its creature and give mankind what it needs, not what it praises. Similarly, even though we live on this planet Earth, we cannot be mere Earthlings, that we have to locate our identity in terms of man's actual mission. And we have to organize humanity to recognize that mission and what true humanity represents. So that means, very concretely, that you have to place yourself outside of the Earth. You have to, in a certain sense, locate yourself on the moon, or in the short term in the space station, International Space Station, and that's the way you have to look at what's required on Earth. This is what Kraft Erika argued in his writings on the extraterrestrial imperative. Similarly, what we have to do is we have to move forward on a global basis to put together a new world economic order. The Russians, the Chinese, the Indians, the other BRICS nations have taken the initiative in this respect. But we have a world which is divided with the transatlantic region being completely bankrupt. And it's absolutely necessary that we bring the United States into that geometry economically. And that is a big task. And it's only one that can be realized to the extent that throughout the world, people actually master the economic ideas of Alexander Hamilton and of Lyndon LaRouche's Four Laws. There's a poem by Schiller, a very famous poem set to music by Beethoven, in which this is the Ode to Joy, set by Beethoven in the Ninth Symphony. And in terms of this idea of placing yourself in the universe, which is what mankind's actual mission is, to master the universe, what what Schiller does in all of his refrains is to place man in that position. For instance, brothers, or the stars unfurled, God doth judge as we have settled. Or further, or the tent of stars unfurled, God rewards you from the heavens. And that's the location, that's the placement which we must have if we are to actually address the needs of humanity at this point, and to ensure that the possibility of avoiding the destruction of humanity through thermonuclear war is actually fully realized. Because as long as Lyndon LaRouche has emphasized, as long as the financial conditions which have led the world to the point of war have not been resolved, then that war potential will actually continue to surface. Now, what I would like to just do is point to a few of the most critical features of what Schiller elaborated. First of all, what he emphasized is that it is through beauty that man proceeds to freedom. You cannot have freedom unless, in fact, you have really created beautiful souls among humanity, which are characterized by the emotion of agape, which is Greek for love. That's the fundamental emotion, as Lyndon LaRouche has often called it, which is actually required. It's in many of Schiller's works he deals with this fundamental issue, and he says that in fact, if you actually operate from the standpoint of love or agape, love for the truth, love for humanity, then you have actually entered into what he calls the joyous realm of play, of basically of creative play, which is the actual nature of man. In the Callias letters, he discusses this in terms of his own version of the Good Samaritan fable from the Bible. And what he stresses is that he gives 5 examples of individuals who respond to a man who's wounded on the side of the street. And only the 5th actually helps the individual without having a debate in his own mind as to whether he should do it. Many of the others actually, among other things, thought in terms of being paid for helping the person and what was in it for them. And what Schiller argues is that it's only the moral beauty arises only when duty has become nature to man. That is, you do your duty with joy because your actual emotions are characterized by agape, by love. In one of Schiller's writings, which is the Philosophical Letters, he writes, "When I hate, so I take something from myself. When I love, so become I so much the richer by what I love. Forgiveness is the recovery of an alienated property. Hatred of man, a prolonged suicide. Egoism, the highest poverty of a created being." And he goes on to really look at this from the standpoint of different conceptions of society. He writes, "Egoism and love separate mankind into 2 highly dissimilar races, whose boundaries never flow into one another. Egoism erects its center in itself. Love plants it outside of itself in the axis of the eternal whole. Love aims at unity. Egoism is solitude. Love is the co-governing citizen of a blossoming free state. Egoism, a despot in a ravaged creation. Egoism sows for gratitude. Love for ingratitude. Love gives. Egoism lends." And in other works of Schiller, he develops the same concept. For instance, in the legislation of Solon and Lycurgus. One of the first things that Solon did when he became the head of Athens and replaced Draco, from whose name we derive the word draconian. One of the first things he did was to eliminate, to cancel the debt. what he did, as Schiller writes, whereby all debts were annulled, and it was forbidden at the same time that in the future anyone be permitted to borrow on his own person. And you think of what's required in the transatlantic sector at this point, which is full-scale bankruptcy reorganization in which the debts are actually canceled, just as Solon did previously. The alternative to that, as Schiller said, was the society in Sparta, which was based completely upon slavery. And those are the alternatives which we still face to this day. In universal history, one of Schiller's the lectures that he gave when he was a history professor, he writes the following. He distinguishes between the philosophical mind and the bread-fed scholar, the person who is just a careerist, just wants money. And he talks about the philosophical mind. He has always loved truth more than his system, and he will gladly exchange the old, insufficient form for a new one, more beautiful. Indeed, if no blow from the outside shatters his edifice of ideas, he himself will be the first to tear it apart, discontented, to reestablish it more perfected. That's love of truth. That's love of humanity. To be fully to throw away your previous beliefs and replace them with the truth in behalf of humanity, which is something which is often called, people are called upon at great moments in history, when failed systems must be discarded, failed systems of belief. And that's the kind of moment that we're in right now. In the French Revolution, people didn't discard the old system. And they face their own destruction. And that's the kind of situation that we're facing today in the United States and throughout the world. Now, in one of his writings called The Artist, Schiller writes that this responsibility is really on the shoulders of the artist. And by implication, we are all artists because we are all in the image of the composer of the universe. So it applies not just to a person who identifies himself as an artist in a limited sense, but to all human beings. We should all function as artists in terms of creating a more beautiful universe. And what he says there is, the dignity of man into your hands is given, its keeper be. It sinks with you it will be risen. And that's an awesome sense of responsibility, which every one of us must internalize and make one's own. Now, what I think I'll do is just end with the following. We went through an election 8 years ago, which was all about hope and change, we were led to believe. But there is a real hope, and there really is a real basis for change. It's just that you have to actually develop your mind to understand what that is so that you're not manipulated and made a fool. And one of Schiller's most important poems is the poem Hope, which ends with the following stanza. It is no empty fawning deceit begot in the brain of a jester. Proclaimed aloud in the heart is it, we are born for that which is better. And what the innermost voice conveys, the hoping spirit ne'er that betrays. And I would maintain that hope is based upon creating an aesthetical state of mind, freeing oneself from prejudices, freeing oneself from the conditions which otherwise condition the way you react, the way you behave, and rising to a level of creative play in which you place your identity in the universe. And I would say that is precisely what Lenin and Helga LaRouche have emphasized over the decades and most recently in the last couple days. And that's a challenge for all of us And that's the challenge which we have as we celebrate the 257th birthday of Friedrich Schiller. Also, this weekend is the birthday of Sun Yat-sen, an individual who was very much influenced by the American Revolution. And in the play Wilhelm Tell, and I understand that at least in Texas there will be scenes performed from that, the play ends with Schiller, with one of the characters, I think it's Rudenz, saying that the final line of the play is, "And I proclaim that all my serfs are free." And that play was written in 1805. It was written really in support of the American Revolution, because in it you have the famous Rutli Oath, and you have the speech in which it said, no, there is a limit to a tyrant's power, and that we have to reach up into the stars and seize our inalienable rights. That's the perspective that we have to have today. On November 24th, 1984, the Schiller Institute adopted a declaration of the inalienable rights of man, which was based upon the Declaration of Independence, rewritten to apply to all humanity. And what Schiller did in 1805 was essentially to support the American Revolution, but at the same time to anticipate the need for the Emancipation Proclamation by Lincoln. And I would say today he anticipated also the four freedoms of Roosevelt and the need, as expressed by Kraft-Erika, for man to have the freedom to actually go beyond the planet Earth and realize his true humanity. Again, I would like to express my gratitude, my personal gratitude, to Helga Zeppler-Rouge for having introduced me and our organization, and through that, people throughout America and elsewhere throughout the world, to Friedrich Schiller. I count him among one of my best friends, and I hope you do too. So with that, again, I give you greetings in your celebrations of Schiller's birthday.